Welcome to the Tech Ed Podcast, where we visit with leaders who are shaping, innovating, and disrupting technical education. People who are not afraid to think differently, not afraid to try something new, all with the goal of securing the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent. Welcome to the Tech Ed Podcast. I am your host, Matt Kirchner, and earlier this year, I accepted the invitation on the part of the governor of North Dakota and now candidate for President of the United States, the Honorable Doug Burgum, to deliver the keynote address at his annual summit on innovative education. It was a fantastic day of best practices in advancing and disrupting the world of education. Our message for that day for educators in North Dakota should and will resonate with those across America. There's way too much great content here to limit it to one state in the union. So listen in as we share the audio from that keynote and share the message of how we secure the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent in North Dakota and across all 50 American states. It's such a pleasure to be with all of you here this afternoon. We are finishing strong here. It's been a fantastic day, and we are having an absolutely wonderful time. We are going to talk today about securing the American dream for the next generation, but I want to start by telling you a story about a book that I just finished reading. It's called The Power of Moments. And in the book, The Power of Moments, the whole idea is that some moments in our lives are vastly more meaningful than others. The book calls these moments defining moments, and these are the moments that rise above the everyday. These are the moments that rewire our understanding of ourselves and the world, and these are the moments that tend to capture us at our very, very best. And I want to share with you one such moment that I experienced not too long ago, and I serve on the foundation board of our local technical college in southeast Wisconsin where I work. And my favorite part of serving on that foundation board is that every single year we get to award the scholarships that the students have earned at an awards banquet that takes place every February. And it works like this. The room is full. You've got all of these scholarship recipients and their parents and their kids. It's absolutely fascinating. And so as these students, 500 of them in all, are called up to the stage as foundation board members, we stand there, we shake their hands as they come up, and then they walk off to the side of the stage. And then we stand in a line and we get our picture taken with that student in front of a backdrop. So I'm standing in line to get our picture taken with a young student, and this young man says, "Thank you." And I said, "You're welcome." And he said, "No, I mean it." He said, "Thank you." And I said, "Go on." And he said, "I'm a student in the emergency medical technician program here at the college. And my dream my whole life has been to be an EMT. When I was younger, one of my family members had a medical emergency, and the EMTs came and helped us in our greatest time of need. And for my whole life, I've wanted to be able to do that for other people." He said, "My family, we didn't grow up with a lot of money. In fact, there were a lot of weeks where we could barely make it to the end of the week and put food on the table. And I was 4 days away from dropping out of my EMT program. 4 days away when I received word that I received this scholarship." And he said, "This scholarship is keeping my dream alive." We talk a lot in education about keeping dreams alive, but we talk even more sometimes about helping people accomplish their dreams. But I'm going to tell you today that a dream that is kept alive is even more important than helping someone accomplish a dream. Because a dream that dies is a dream that will never happen. A dream that dies is potential future greatness that will never occur. A dream that dies is innovation that we may never enjoy. A dream that dies is that budding EMT's opportunity to help someone else in their greatest time of need. So I want to tell you today that as educators, I want to thank you not just for making dreams come true, but I want to thank you for keeping dreams alive, and to me, that's even more important. I want to talk about a dream that I'm working to keep alive, and that's the American dream. I sold our manufacturing company now, it's been about 8 years ago, and I dedicated the rest of my career to securing the American dream for the next generation of workforce talent. Now, there's a lot of different ways that we can define the American dream. I define it this way. It's when all Americans of integrity have access to the education, to the training, and to the opportunity that they need to live a life commensurate with their willingness to put in the work, to innovate, and to take reasonable risk. In my opinion, when we reach a world like that, we reach a world where we have accomplished the American dream. Now, as you can imagine, because of that work, I spend a lot of time in the world of education. And I want to share another experience with you I had not too long ago that relates to my own educational experience. I had the opportunity not too long ago to go back to my childhood grade school. It had been 40 years since I had been in that grade school, 40 years since I had set foot in that building. And I went back and I walked down the same halls that I used to walk down with my friends and drank from the same drinking fountains. I went into every single classroom that I was in during my 8 years, from kindergarten all the way through 6th grade, at that grade school. And it was an amazing day. It still smelled the same, it still looked the same, and it was just this incredible walk down memory lane. And so as I was walking out the door, I was just reflecting on what a great opportunity that was to go back to the school that had had so much of an impact on my life. It was exactly the same. And then I got into my car and I said, wait a minute, 40 years later, our whole world is different. Everything is different, but yet the grade school that I grew up in looked exactly the way that it did 40 years ago. It's what Dr. Joe Gover talks about. He's the superintendent of the St. Paul Public Schools. Talks about when he says, if you look at the average American classroom, it looks exactly the same as it did 50, 60, even 70 years ago. And now here we are 70 years later, and in many cases, we're still educating our kids the same way. And this is in a time when technology has changed everything. If we look back just 15 years ago, with the advent of the smartphone, think about all the things that we use every single day that have been replaced now by the smartphone. We used to carry around cameras and camcorders and flashlights and gaming devices and credit card screeners. We would have video players and alarm clocks and books and tape measures and airline tickets. All of these things that we used to have all been replaced by our smartphones in the last 15 years. And in much the same way, education looks the same in some cases as it did 40 years ago. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about my education journey. It was an interesting one. If you were to go back and look at my report cards from when I was growing up, they would say things like this: Matthew can't sit still. Matthew is hyperactive. Matthew is rambunctious. They would say things like, Matthew needs to apply himself to his schoolwork. He needs to slow down. He's always in a rush. Matthew likes being the center of attention. I used to dread the day that my parents would go to the parent-teacher conferences, because I knew I was going to get an earful when they got home about all this stuff. And I was a good kid. I was an usher in my church. I went all the way through scouting. But when it came to education, it was a little bit of a challenge. And then I got to the world of manufacturing. And it turns out that everything that I got in trouble for in elementary school was worth its weight in gold in manufacturing. I couldn't sit still, but we refused to let our company sit still. We were always innovating. We were always improving. We were always growing. I had the opportunity to work on 3 different manufacturing turnarounds during a 23-year career in manufacturing. And when you're in the middle of a turnaround, those are 12, 14, 16-hour days for days and weeks on end. And it turned out the ability to work long hours and maintain high levels of energy was actually a benefit, not a curse. I needed to apply myself to my schoolwork. That's what they said on my report cards. Well, maybe if I could see the end to the means, but sit there and pore over a textbook when I could be out playing wiffle ball with my friends, no way. Absolutely no way. And in the same way, in the world of manufacturing, we abhor wasted effort. We call it overproduction or overprocessing. We stay away from that. We try to eliminate that. And when I got into the world of manufacturing, that was valuable as well. Needing to slow down, I'm always in a rush. Well, the truth of the matter is, when we had machine downtime, or we had a quality issue, or we had a quote that needed to get done right away, or we had an order that needed to be expedited, being in a rush was actually a really good thing. Turns out the things that my teachers weren't particularly crazy about in grade school, my customers loved about me when I got to manufacturing. Matthew likes being the center of attention. I guess some things never change. But I'm here at the Governor's Summit on Education, Innovation in Education, and I'm delivering a keynote address. So I guess that turned out okay as well. All right, let's get into it. Innovating and disrupting education. I've got some of these are examples, and some of these are trends that are taking place. We're going to cover a little bit of both of them. We're going to start out with a trend. So the edge to cloud continuum. We have to be teaching this at every level of education. Do you have any idea how many sensors are on your smartphone? Just on your smartphone, you have 23 sensors. We have sensors that are measuring acceleration, capacitive sensors, gyroscopes, humidity sensors, infrared sensors. We have LiDAR, we have optical sensors, we have temperature sensors, U1 chips, UV sensors. We are walking smart sensors, and smart devices are totally revolutionizing the world in which we live. So when we talk about the edge to cloud continuum, here's what we mean by this. Your smartphone is existing out on the edge. It is measuring a system, and that system is you. That is your activity. And it's using the 23 sensors of smartphones to do it. And we send that information to the smartphone itself. That's our control system. And then to a Wi-Fi router or a modem or maybe to a cell tower, and then up to an internet service provider, and then to the cloud where we're using cloud-based applications like Spotify and Safari and so on. So that's a really easy one for us to understand because we all have a smartphone. But guess what? That same continuum exists in my world, the world of manufacturing. So in my world, the world of manufacturing, we have CNC controls and robotics and conveyors. And we have temperature and proximity and ultrasonic sensors sending information to programmable logic controllers. And then up to a computer network. And then to an ISP. And then it goes up to the cloud where software like MT-Link-I and ZDT is monitoring manufacturing. Let me give you a little bit of example of this. Right now, General Motors has 15,000 robots that they deployed across all of their manufacturing operations. And they've loaded these things up with smart sensors and smart devices that are gathering data in real time about things like time and torque and humidity and temperature and viscosity and moisture. And then sending that information to a computer network. And from a computer network, it is going to a data collector. And from a data collector, it is going up to the cloud. And the cloud has cloud-based software that is analyzing all of that in real time. Right now, today, General Motors has those robots to the point where they can predict their own future failure and order their own replacement parts before the failure ever happens. That's not 10 years from now. That's happening right now at General Motors. And that's what we mean by the edge to cloud continuum. But we don't have to stop there. If we look at precision agriculture, we have the same continuum. We call it different things, but it's exactly the same thing. We're measuring the soil, we're measuring livestock, we're measuring irrigation, and we're doing it with different types of sensors in some cases, sending it to a PLC, to a cell tower, to an internet service provider, and to cloud-based software like FarmWorks or Smart Farm. So one of the coolest parts of the work that we do at the Tech Ed Podcast and elsewhere is that we get the first look at all the coolest new technology. So I don't know what you were doing on Sunday afternoon, but this is what I was doing in my backyard. There's a company out of Spokane, Washington that sent me this precision agriculture training device. It's an autonomous vehicle. It's an autonomous tractor. It's using all this cool technology. It's got GPS, it's got telemetry, it's got ping sensors, it's got a gyroscope, it's got an accelerometer, edge to cloud. It's communicating with satellites, it's communicating using GPS. So I played with this thing for a couple hours on Sunday afternoon. It was absolutely fascinating technology. We can even take this thing and we can put it out in the parking lot, and it will actually, using GPS, it'll use the same route that it would use if it was plowing a field, for example. Now, I know a lot of you are asking yourself this question. You're like, hey, we're a Case New Holland family, and why do you have that green tractor up there, right? I know that you're asking yourself that. Here's the answer to that question. I read somewhere that the first lady of North Dakota hails from a family that spent 35 years in the John Deere business, and I'm not stupid. And that's why we have a green tractor instead of a red one. But if the red tractors are your thing, they've got that too. So if that's what you're into, you've got options. They actually have a sprayer. This thing actually sprays a gallon of liquid every single minute at 5 miles an hour, teaching students that whole edge to cloud continuum in precision agriculture. We have the same thing in energy. We have the same thing in the world of healthcare. We have the same thing in food production. My younger brother, by the way, he's the CEO of a company that produces 80,000 cheesecakes every single day and sends them to grocery stores all over the country. He'll tell you all about edge to cloud in food production. And yes, when people we haven't seen in quite a while ask me what my younger brother is up to, of course I tell them that he's working at the Cheesecake Factory. We have the same continuum in the world of defense, the exact same continuum from the edge to the cloud. And it continues into every single sector in our economy, and it also includes things like customer relationship management software, integrated management systems, data analytics, safety, standardized quality, and continuous improvement. And that same continuum exists across every single segment of our economy. So we have to teach edge to cloud continuum in our classrooms because it is absolutely changing the world. The other thing that's changing education are third-party credentials. I want to introduce you to my friend Jim Wall. Some of you may know him. He used to be the executive director of the National Institute of Metalworking Skills. He now stood up an organization called the Smart Automation Certification Alliance, partnered with people like Ron Wanek. Not sure if you're familiar with Ron. I love his story. He earned 19 cents a week. That was his allowance growing up on a farm in Winona, Minnesota. Founded Ashley Furniture, created the largest furniture manufacturer in the world. So Jim partnered with people like Ron Wanek and Ashley Furniture, and he asked those people, when you hire and train and promote edge-to-cloud talent, what is it that you're looking for? And it wasn't just Ashley Furniture. He asked a ton of companies, thousands of companies, and he did his homework, and he created a list of standards called the Smart Automation Certification Alliance. And you can see in here, this is all edge to cloud. He's got smart factory systems, he's got Ethernet, he's got smart sensors and smart devices, Smart Automation Certification Alliance. I actually hold 2 of these certifications. They took me about 50 hours apiece to earn. But let me explain how this is working for Ashley Furniture. Ashley Furniture had a problem. They're an employer in Arcadia, Wisconsin, 5,000 people. They actually employ 40,000 people around the globe, but 5,000 people in Arcadia, Wisconsin. Arcadia is a town of 225 people. So you can figure out that the challenge of recruiting people into an organization like that is a big, big challenge. So what Ron was worried about was that young people were leaving Western Wisconsin and going elsewhere, maybe for college, whatever came after their secondary education, and a lot of them were never coming back. And he said, we want to show them the world, but we want to show them what's here as well. Created this mobile skills lab. It travels to 4 different school districts in rural Western Wisconsin. It expands to a 900 square foot classroom where all kinds of students are being inspired around edge to cloud technology. Let me give you just one example. I met Brianna Ruiz, and this is a young lady who, first of all, graduated from high school in 3 years. She earned on the way 3 of those certifications from the Smart Automation Certification Alliance. She's barely old enough to drive a car, and she's going off to the University of Wisconsin-Stout, living at home, staying in her same neighborhood, but going to college and living out what would have been her senior year of high school, going to a 4-year university. She did all of this while working 2 jobs. And one of those jobs was as an automation technician for Ashley Furniture. That is one of the most highly demanded positions in all of advanced manufacturing. And she is a shining example of the future of education, where it's way less about how much time you spent in the classroom and way more about what you were able to learn during your education journey. Absolutely fascinated by Brianna Ruiz. Let's talk about teaching artificial intelligence, and we're going to get into some examples in just a minute. I have this friend that I work with, and she has a niece, and her niece was talking about the class that she's taking in high school in artificial intelligence. And she said, my least favorite class is AI theory. All we do is watch boring videos about artificial intelligence. Well, shame on that school if your least favorite class is AI theory. That should be her most favorite class. We should be teaching students that all artificially intelligent systems do 4 things. They can see, they have the ability to think, they have the ability to act, and they have the ability to communicate. Let me give you an example. This is what we call an autonomous mobile robot. We use these in manufacturing and distribution. You can think of it as the driverless fork truck. Not a perfect example, but you'll get the idea. It is loaded up with all kinds of sensors. It has the ability to see using LiDAR, using 3D cameras, using color sensors. It also has the ability to think. When a person is walking into its path, it can realize that somebody is walking into its path. It has the ability to know when there's an obstacle in the way and it needs to drive around the obstacle. It also has the ability to act. So when it comes up to that obstacle and it realizes it's there, it can act, it can drive around it. If a person's walking in front of it, it will stop before that person gets injured. If it needs to charge up its batteries, it will do that. And it has the ability to communicate. It communicates with the cloud. It communicates with other autonomous mobile robots. If 2 of them are going to be traveling down the same aisle and then that aisle is too narrow for them, they'll figure it out before either one of them starts down the aisle, and one of them will go another direction. So that's a really cool example of artificial intelligence in practice, and we're going to come back to how we teach it. Number 4, industry engagement. Absolutely disrupting the world of education. Now, I could give you examples of dozens upon dozens of people that are investing their own treasure in their local school districts for the benefit not just of the district and its students, but for the benefit of the employer as well. Since we're limited on time and I've already introduced you to Ron Wanek, we're going to stick with him. Ron invited me to deliver an address at a grand opening, a celebration of a brand new learning lab that he helped to fund. So we had this opportunity to go to Luther High School, it's called, and Ron actually wrote them a check for $1.1 million to equip a lab with all kinds of cool edge-to-cloud technologies. Now understand, you can do that for a lot less than $1 million, so don't let that number scare you away. But he invited me up on the stage, and I had the opportunity to join him when he was making that gift to the school. His only stipulation, or at least his biggest one, was they could only spend the money on equipment. He wasn't going to spend money on bricks and mortar. He said other people can figure that out. I want to spend money on the equipment that teaches this technology. So let me tell you about the kind of technology that's in there. And in order to get into that, I first have to tell you and ask you, what happens if I give a welding instructor $1 million? If I give a welding instructor $1 million, I guarantee you I will get $1 million of welding equipment and plasma cutters, because that's what they know. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that is what I'm going to get. If I give a machining instructor $1 million, I know that I'm going to get $1 million of CNC equipment, because that's what they know. Now look, I spent a good part of my career running metal fabrication shops. The world needs CNC machinists. The world absolutely needs welders. There's nothing more than that, but we have to go deeper. Here's another cool example. This thing is actually a combination 3D printer and a machining center. So it can take a part and 3D print it. We're teaching additive manufacturing, change out the head, and on the same piece of equipment, they can do subtractive manufacturing using a control that you're going to see in just about every single manufacturing operation across the United States. But now we have to think about how we teach edge to cloud. I've spent a fair amount of time talking with welding programs. A lot of them are getting into robotic welding. Really, really cool stuff. You can teach somebody how to operate and program a robotic welder. But you can also teach them edge to cloud. You've got all of these smart sensors, all of these smart devices, all of these control systems, cloud-based applications that are running that equipment, gathering all kinds of information. So with the same weld robot, we can teach edge to cloud. We can do the same thing with a material handling robot. These are the things that paint things, and they assemble products, and they move materials in manufacturing. And we can teach edge to cloud on those as well. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret in terms of investing in robotic equipment. And it's a little secret that not all the robotic companies make a really big deal of. And so the truth is that every single robotics company, this isn't a commercial for any individual one of them, every single one of them has a separate channel to education. And if you're working with that channel, you'll not only get a deeply discounted robot, you'll also get thrown in for free curriculum, you'll get e-learning, you will get simulation software, you will get a digital twin software, you'll get all of the education-specific operations manuals, you'll get free instructor training, you'll get certifications, and a lot of them are sponsoring statewide competitions. So nothing wrong with buying an industrial robot. Just know that if you can find your way, whatever the robot company is, to the education side of their business, there are a lot of great deals to be had there. We can also teach technology like collaborative robotics. We slow down robots in education so that nobody gets hurt, but in an industrial robot, I'll move 750 millimeters per second. That can be dangerous. Collaborative robots can work side by side with a human being, and we can teach all kinds of edge-to-cloud technology on a collaborative robot. I know you have tons of drone programs across the state of North Dakota. Really, really cool drone programs. That's a platform you already have on which you can teach edge to cloud. Yes, we can license the student to fly a drone. That is fantastic, and there's all kinds of applications there. But we can also teach them how to make a drone. We can teach them about all the smart sensors on the drone. We can teach them about the principles of flight. We can teach them about GPS. All of this technology, plus all of the programming that goes into programming a drone. You already have those programs. Make sure that you're using those to teach edge to cloud. There's all kinds of great opportunities for us, folks, to teach edge to cloud in our technical education programs. And please call it technical education. Please don't call it shop class. When we call it shop class, we take one group of students and say, you're being pigeonholed in this lane. And we take this other huge group of students and say, that's not for you, that's for the other students. I saw this article in CNBC, I think it was 2 weeks ago actually, where it was this awesome article. It was about all these students that are getting interested now in the skilled trades, coming into CNC programs, coming into welding programs, and the title of it was, High School Shop Class is Back. No, it's not. Don't call it shop class. Call it technical education so we don't pigeonhole students into one lane or the other. Let me give you an example. This is a statewide robotics competition that I attended not too long ago. This was the team of students that won the statewide robotics competition. 2 of them went direct to workforce. The 3rd one went on to a community college to be an automation technician. The team that took third place, this was the team that took third place, same curriculum, same robot, same course, same certifications, different school, Plymouth High School. These 3 students all went on to engineering schools. And not that either one of those paths is better or worse, it certainly isn't, but I'll tell you what was awesome. All 3 of these students came back a year after their freshman year of engineering school and said, because we went through tech ed, because we learned how to program robots and the like, we were so far ahead of all the students that just learned calculus and trigonometry and algebra and physics. That hands-on opportunity for these 3 engineering students put them way ahead of all the other students, which is huge when it comes to how we influence a young person's career pathway. Number 1 influencer of a young person's career pathway. Take a moment to yourself and think about what that might be. Number 1 influencer of a young person's career pathway. And all of the usual suspects are on the list. Certainly parents influence career pathways. Teachers do. Social media does. Friends do. The classes, social and counselors and so on. All of these things affect and influence a young person's career pathway. You know what the number 1 influencer is, and it isn't even close? Number 1 influencer of a young person's career pathway are their own interests and experiences when they're in middle school and high school. That's according to a study of 23,000 young people done by Skills USA and the Manufacturing Institute. That is the number 1 influencer of a young person's career pathway, especially true for girls, and especially true in middle school, where girls will start to turn off to pathways. It's not that they're saying, I want to be a lawyer, or I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a nurse. They're starting to say, manufacturing's a boy's job. Engineering's a boy's job. I don't want to go down that path. So we have to influence career pathways, as so many of you know, as early as middle school and even sooner. I mentioned I had Dr. David Honey, the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense, on my podcast, and he had this great line. He said the key decision point of whether a kid is going to go into STEM is actually the 8th grade. He said that is when they make the decision of taking algebra and calculus and trigonometry and so on. He said, so when you think about it, our future as a STEM-powered country every single year is in the hands of a group of 8th graders. That is both simultaneously hilarious and terrifying. You know what isn't terrifying is this young person's career pathway. This is a young man I met a couple years ago. His name is Kyle Pike. Kyle graduated from high school. He took a 1-semester course in robot operations and programming. 1-semester course. The day after he graduated from high school, he started a career as a paint robot programmer at a company called Metalcraft of Mayville. They make the Skag garden tractors, zero-turn mowers, if you're familiar with that. Day after high school, I don't know what that job pays in your neck of the woods, but where I live, that's a $60,000 or $70,000 job with a high school diploma, and his employer will pay him to continue his education if he wants to continue his education. And you know when you live in Lamira, Wisconsin, and you've just graduated from high school and you're making $70,000 a year, you know what Kyle drives to work? Any pickup truck he wants. Absolutely any pickup truck he wants. Let's finish here with what's happening with the 4-year degree, the future of the 4-year degree. So I raised my kids in a home that's about 6 or 7 blocks from Cardinal Stritch University. This is a small Catholic college in southeast Wisconsin. I love that university. We would walk through the paths with our kids when they were little, enjoy all the flowers and the plants. It's absolutely beautiful. My best friend took his Master's of Business Administration from Cardinal Stritch University. Another great friend of mine is the Vice President of Development for Cardinal Stritch University. So April of this year, I'm getting ready to fly to the national board meeting for the American Technical Education Association. And what do I see? Cardinal Stritch University closing at the end of the semester. Thousands of students whose education pathway is totally in chaos. Hundreds upon hundreds of people losing their jobs, and sadly, I fear, that is just the tip of the iceberg. That is the canary in the coal mine for higher education. The truth is, demographics are not in favor of higher education and 4-year universities, and there's some states that are doing better than others. Yours is certainly one of them, but if you look back to 2008, during the Great Recession, there were a lot of people that chose not to have kids. The fertility rate slowed down. We weren't having as many kids, and that is now catching up with us. Those students are now getting to college age, and the year 2025 to 2035 is not going to be a good period of time for higher education. And that's just half of the problem. The other half of the problem is attitudes about 4-year universities are changing. Fascinating study by Wakefield Research earlier this year. 43% say technical skills are more important to their career than are the skills they'll get at a 4-year university. That's of students who are of the age of 13 to 18 years old. More than 3/4 of students agree that a 2-year degree or a technical certification is enough to get a good job. A growing percentage of students, 70% now, worry and have financial concerns about pursuing additional education after high school. So our higher educators are going to have to rethink their model. They don't have a choice. You know, somebody who's doing that is my friend David Ding. This guy has an incredible backstory, absolutely amazing, his route from China to the United States. But he's the associate dean at the University of Wisconsin-Stout, the same school that Brianna Ruiz is going to. He is breaking new ground in the world of education with a degree in automation leadership. Bachelor's degree in automation leadership, the most in-demand skill among engineers in the world of advanced manufacturing. These people are worth their weight in gold. David partnered with the Smart Automation Certification Alliance. That's Jim Wall's organization that we talked about a little while ago. And here's how this degree program works. For earning these micro-credentials that students can earn in high school, they can earn it at an industrial employer, they can earn it at a technical or community college. If they earn those 15 credentials plus 2 electives, 40 credits. 40 credits toward a bachelor's degree. And then they can take another 27 gen eds, and it can be from any institution that has a transfer agreement with the University of Wisconsin-Stout. To give an example, he's signing a transfer agreement with the entire state of Indiana. Every student in Indiana will have access to this program. And then there are a series of professional degrees or professional certifications. You earn 7 of the 14 on this list, and that is good for another 21 credits. So now we have a student who hasn't set foot in a university classroom, hasn't set foot on a university campus, hasn't paid a penny of university tuition, and has 88 credits toward a 120 credit bachelor's degree. And then they come to the University of Wisconsin-Stout, or they don't. They can do all of this remotely. They can stay in their own hometown. They can stay in their own community, earn another 21 credits in the courses that are on your screen. The only caveat is the Higher Learning Commission says at least 32 total credits, which can be other electives, have to be earned at the University of Wisconsin-Stout for them to be able to confer the degree. And now that student has a bachelor's degree in automation leadership. They barely paid, they haven't even paid for two semesters of university tuition. And so what happens is David's getting a little criticism. He's drawing a little bit of fire because people are saying, well, wait a minute, if you have 40 students in an engineering program or an automation leadership program, and they're paying in-state tuition of $10,000 a year, and they're there for 4 years, that's $1.6 million. Now you're only going to have those students for a year. Your revenue model is going to blow up. And David says, well, I'm planning on having 1,000 students studying all across the United States at $10,000 a year or more if they're out of state, and doing it for 1 year. And I'm not really good with numbers, but I can tell you that $10 million is a lot more than $1.6 million. This is a great example of how we disrupt higher education, and people like David Ding are figuring this out. And it's going to be really exciting to watch. Folks, I could spend another 3 or 4 hours to giving you examples of some really cool things that are happening when we're disrupting education. We hear about them every single week. Fortunately, I'm limited for time, so I have to stop here. And I'm going to stop with this. As some of you know, I spent 2 weeks in the state of North Dakota. I heard about all the great things that your governor talked about this morning. I'm a hands-on kinesthetic learner. I can't read about it in a book. I have to come see it, and so I did. And I went from one end of your state to the other in 1 week, and I turned around and went from one end to the other the next week. And I met so many fascinating people, great people, friendly people. They opened up their doors to me. They shared what they were doing in technical education. They shared what they were doing in education in general. That was all good, but you know what the best thing is? And I travel all over the country and talk with people in the world of education. I have never seen a state that is more aligned from the state house to the schoolhouse than the state of North Dakota on the idea of how we inspire young people toward great careers, how we invest in education. Your state is making unprecedented investments in the future of education, and I might add, in some ways, disrupting education. That is simultaneously a huge opportunity and a great responsibility, because when you spend once in a generation money, you probably only get one opportunity to get it right. I know you will, and when you do, you will be securing the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent. Thank you so much. You've been a wonderful audience.
As we told the educators in North Dakota, they have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to change education for the better. Never before have we seen this much technological change in education and in the economy at large. Never before have we seen this much, and never will we see again, perhaps, this much funding coming into technical education. There is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in North Dakota and a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity across the United States of America to disrupt and change and innovate the world of education. We're seeing it happen in North Dakota. Now go do it in your corner of the world. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Tech Ed Podcast. If you haven't already, subscribe, leave a review, and if you liked this episode, share it with a friend. New episodes launch every Tuesday, so listen in next week.